right. Well, good morning. We are here at our Planning and Development Committee meeting. Welcome. We have in attendance the Chair, Davita Russell, Vice Chair, Councilman Cobb,
Present.
and President of Council and member of the Planning and Development Committee, President Kuda.
Present.
All right, so we are here to talk about Resolution 241, which is the master plan for the Parks and Recreation. So with further ado, I am going to turn it over to our Director of Planning and Development, Director Zell.
Thank you. Thank you all for having us here, and we're really excited to talk about this. I'm joined with Assistant Director Karen Candelo and Chris Kendall, and we also did invite Director Gonzalez to join us because we were the team of folks that sort of spearheaded this effort and did the interviews. And by way of background, on July the 18th, we issued a RFP for a Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan. The acronym is PROS, P-R-O-S, so we'll be using that because it really covers those three aspects: parks, recreation, of course, but also open space in our community. We received some really good responses, 10 in total. We shortlisted that to 4, and we interviewed those 4 teams, and we were really impressed with the team that we are recommending and bringing you here tonight. But there was one little caveat to that, which was that on 2 of the other teams was a team member that we had worked with previously on our CSAP, Seventh Hill Design, that we thought they're just great. They do, some really unique things. So we reached out to our OHM team and we said, would it be possible for you to bring these guys on board? And over the past few weeks, they were able to have a conversation and ultimately supplement their proposal with Seventh Hill on the team.
Oh, nice.
So we think we're really getting, everything we were looking for. I just want to turn it slightly over to Karen to talk a little bit about what about their proposal and their team really was valuable to us.
Sure, thank you. And the proposal really was so complete. They listened to what we were asking for, and they addressed that. In our interview with them, it was very clear that they were hearing our questions and comfortable answering them, and there was no question that made them at all blink or make them uncomfortable. It was a very good interaction. The team has the expertise, so they're looking at everything we want to look at, from natural areas to how recreation is managed and operated. How are our buildings functioning? Do we have the right mix of activities at the different parks? So they'll be talking about a little bit of that as they go through the proposal. But we feel like they did a really excellent job of addressing that. They did their presentation with us very comfortably, as I said. So their oral interaction and engagement with people seemed to be just what we need for Cleveland Heights, where we have such a diverse community. And then the graphics were a little playful, and we thought that was fun and a little bit different. And we want this to be a fun and engaging process as we go forward, so that we can get the information we need to develop a good plan, so that we have an action map as we go forward.
Great.
So before we turn to them, Director Gonzalez has joined us, and Chris Kendall here. Did you guys want to say at all anything about, why it was pretty much a unanimous choice of why we thought they were the best team, but give you an opportunity to...
Yeah, just echoing off of what Karen said, they just fit. It just felt like they fit. All 4, we talked about it internally, all 4 people that we interviewed were well qualified to do the work. There was no doubt about that. But we just felt like OHM just kind of fit with what we were in alignment with and all that good stuff. So we were all very comfortable with that.
Great.
And I enthusiastically second everything that's been said already, so.
Great.
Thank you.
So rather than us, continue to extol why we were impressed by them,
Keep going. Great.
we'd like to invite the team to come up and, share a little bit about who they are, and I think you'll see why we picked them. And at the end, we do want to talk about sort of the budgeting and all this, and there's going to be another step that you might. So, Josh, you just want to start putting the way to do that.
Yeah, no, I hope you can live up to all that, but thank you.
We just wanted to give you a brief introduction of who OHM is, introduce you to the project team. And as Director Zamp had mentioned, it's not just OHM. We are working with other partners, including RDL Architects, Pros Consulting, and Seventh Hill. These are all partners that we've worked with previously and that we're comfortable working with, and it really rounds out our team to bring us a complete team to this project. So just a quick introduction. My name is Josh Slaga. I'm a principal with OHM Advisors. We have Jeremy Hinke and Arthur Schmidt with us as well. What I like about our team, I'm actually an engineer by background. Jeremy's a landscape architect. Arthur is a planner. So we bring a nice balance, and then we're supplemented obviously with the other firms that I know Jeremy and Arthur can get into. And just a quick background on OHM Advisors. We have 21 locations throughout the United States, mostly you can see focused Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, Tennessee, and Florida. Over 700 experts and a lot of disciplines that we bring. Everyone from this office, we're in Cleveland. We're located in Midtown, so it's a short, easy drive for us. We're local. That means we're available. We have a lot of our team members that even live in Cleveland Heights. We have an understanding and a passion for this area that makes us really excited when we get to work with communities like Cleveland Heights. And then you can see our breakdown of just, again, focusing on that balance of engineering, architecture, planning, and especially in our Cleveland office where I really think that we do bring that balance. We're not just an engineering firm or a landscape architecture firm or a planning firm. We actually almost have a nice even balance across all the disciplines, which I think provides us with a unique perspective. This is going to be our team, and I know I'll kick it over to Arthur and Jeremy to kind of touch on these aspects of,
Yeah, so I think the director had talked about it before, but while we have a lot of these different aspects within the OHM family, our group really loves to collaborate with other consultants and other friends in the industry, quite honestly. And I think that's that collaboration that, as a result of, brings together a more holistic plan and set of recommendations forward. So as part of this, we have brought together RDL Architects who have worked in the city before. Are going to be bringing on not only the knowledge of working within the community before, but also as it pertains to some of the facilities, Kane Park, the centers, different things like that can bring their knowledge to the table. Pros Consulting is another team that we've worked with quite frequently across all of our offices, both in Ohio. They're based out of Indiana. They really come kind of rooted in parks and recreation. So they are going to bring the data, the analytics piece of this, the analysis, the quantitative piece, as you will. They're going to be looking at it as it relates to Cleveland Heights itself, Cleveland Heights compared to the region, to the state, and then nationally. So all of that information is going to help us kind of quantify where the parks, the recreation, the open space, how it all compares with comparable cities across the way. And then as the director had mentioned before, Seventh Hill, bringing him on board. We've partnered with David Jerka and his team before on other projects, so it was a welcome for us to bring him on board in this initiative. We've spoken with him over the last several weeks to figure out a way to bring him into our engagement approach that we had originally outlined. And so David is going to bring forward a lot of the same great things that he's done, I think, in past projects that he's worked with you and worked across this region. Really being able to mobilize. We're going to be using a mobile street team, being able to utilize him in some pop-up sessions. So being able to go meet the people where they're at. It's a technique we like to use, and David can kind of take it to that next level for us. And just helping out with the overall engagement, making sure that we're engaging with the youth of the community, understanding what it is that they would like to see, and then assisting on some of our mobile tours that we had outlined in our proposal. So we're really happy to bring them on board and think this helps us, put together an even more complete team to help out the community.
Yeah, and this is the project team at whole. And just kind of a brief introduction. My name is Jeremy Hinke. I'm a landscape architect. I was born in Cleveland, so from here, did not go to school around here, so I'm not a Buckeye. I don't have the whole rivalry issue. It doesn't mean much to me, which is kind of nice, actually. It's refreshing. So when they lost, sorry, you have my condolences. I'm just like, yeah, that sucks. But I've been practicing landscape architecture in the Cleveland area for almost 20 years. My recent stint at my previous firm, we actually were on the team that did the school renovations. That was about eight to 10 years ago, where got heavily introduced into the amount of committees the community has. And the one thing we noticed with that, at least I noticed personally, was the passion that the residents have. And from a planning side of things, we always struggle with how do we engage the best. And when you find communities that have that passion, that is a good thing. Some people view that passion as negative, that this is just people being vocal and it's angry, but in reality, they're trying to get their point across. And, one of our mentalities going into this project, and there's a couple terms that when we do our public engagement, we always talk about, what are the things that bring this plan together? And I think actually we probably have it on different slides, or we might have taken it out on this one. But we really talk about three main things that make a plan hum. One is best practices, and that's kind of where we're experts in planning, landscape architecture, engineering. We bring the best practices to the table. The second one is the community engagement. So the first thing we say is we're not at the table saying we are experts in Cleveland Heights. We are saying you guys, the administration, the committees, and the residents, they're the experts in Cleveland Heights. Now, we do happen to have very passionate employees that live in Cleveland Heights that are beyond excited about this project. So I will say that. So they're kind of in that gray area. But we do come to the table and say, we don't come in and just put a heavy stick down and say, we are experts in your community, because we're not. You guys are the experts in the community. But we take those two things and then we bring them with the existing conditions and the analysis. And that's kind of where PROS has, something to do kind of looking at the metrics on the business side. We're going to look at all the facilities. We're going to go out, collect data, kind of assess, rate everything. So we bring all those three things together, and that really creates, a strong master plan. So that's kind of the first thing I want to talk about with our approach. So the one thing I do like to talk about when we are talking to the community is, first thing I always tell the community is engagement is a relationship, And first thing you have to do with any relationship is you have to build trust. And that exercise never stops. So if you have a healthy relationship at home, that trust is kind of an ongoing endeavor. The other thing that we like to instill within our group is empathy. So there's going to be passionate people at the table, and we have to collectively be very empathetic with how we communicate with those people. The reasons we tend to start each conversation like that is we're trying to train you guys. So if we're having committee meetings, we are basically setting them up for public engagement. Because at some point, you're going to talk to a family member, you're going to talk to a friend about the project. We want you to be educated so we're all speaking the same language. So that's just a few things we wanted to mention. The other thing is with this conversation today, if you have any questions, feel free to just interject. Both Arthur and I are very, even when we do presentations, we're very, we like it to be a conversation versus a Q&A. I think Q&As tend to turn into just the loudest voice in the room is the one that's talking the most, and you don't get a most successful feedback. Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, and this is just building off of Jeremy. So we had shared this with the interviewing team, and we felt that we would just highlight this as opposed to go through all the nuts and bolts of the approach. Yeah. But really for us, and as we discussed with city staff, we felt that the keys to success, as Jeremy said, is building that trust not only with you all and the administration, but also with the community. Making sure that we're conducting that comprehensive assessment, right? That at the bones of it, we want to make sure that we're understanding all the nuances within the facilities, within the parks, within the open spaces, so that way we can make informed decisions for the administration and for the community going forward. As Jeremy mentioned, we want to have fun with this. I mean, parks and open spaces and your recreation. I mean, this is the livelihood. It's play, right? Yeah. This is what everybody is looking to do. So we want to instill that too in the way that we go about this process and the way that we make our recommendations. And I think these last two here, the holistic, artistic, timeless solutions, and making sure that this plan serves as a playbook, kind of fit together. Because we want to make sure that what we're bringing forth to you, the recommendations that we build together, the solutions that come forward are things that understandably can be implemented over a period of time. Mm-hmm. We know that there are finite resources when it comes to funds and being able to implement things. Mm-hmm. So let's set a course for how that can take place, right? In the short, medium, and long term. Let's make sure that you have the ability to pivot when you need to, when maybe certain funding sources become available, a grant opportunity pops up that we may not be aware of until that time, so you're prepared to respond to it. And making sure that what you start to implement in the community can be long serving, right? Again, it goes back to the resources standpoint. Oftentimes when communities do this is something that's there for at least 10, 15 years almost. So we want to make sure that we're not only thinking about the community members and the generation that's here right now, but we're thinking about that future generation too, and who you're also trying to attract or keep within the community itself.
And the other thing that's a lot of fun that the two of us bring to the table is kind of our personal passions. So Arthur is a planner by trade, and he has passion in the planning. I'm a landscape architect by trade. My passion is building stuff, but I'm a weird landscape architect because I'm an extrovert. So I like to talk. I love public engagement. There's not a lot of LAs in our firm that actually say, yeah, you're going to enjoy public engagement. I thoroughly enjoy public engagement. I don't know why, but I'm also one of our technical experts. So the one thing that I've always not liked about planning is we spend all this time and effort creating this beautiful plan, bringing everybody together, and then it goes up onto a shelf.
Oh, God.
And it just sits there. So that's always been my knee jerk to planning projects. But because we're good at synthesizing all this information and pulling it together, the blend of what we bring is what makes our plans really successful. Because my lens, when we're getting toward the back ends of this, my lens is always, how are we going to get this built? So I talked about this in the interview where we need to make sure that when we get to our recommendations that we're identifying how long it's going to take, who's responsible for it, and how much those are going to take, like what's going to be the cost for all
Thank
those.
you.
So they can be realistic. And that's kind of where the whole goal is to set you guys up for success, where here's the grants, here's what we need to go after this, here's how we do this, because not everything, you can't do everything at once. It's a process. And then as part of that is we get to explain that to the public too, because that is going to be one question that towards 3/4 people are going to say, when is this going to get built? And that's always what everybody asks. And it's not, we can't just build everything at once. It'd be nice. It would be nice. But that's just something that our combination, brings an interesting aspect to the table.
And the second question is, who's paying for it?
Yes.
So I'm listening to this very organized scaffolding of, process. And maybe I should ask you this question, but certainly I want you to listen to this question. The master plan from 8 years ago or 7 years ago, was it?
Well, the city master plan.
City master plan. But there's a component. How much has this been shared with this group, and how much is that part of conducting the assessment? Like, is that in there somewhere?
Yeah, it's we in the RFP we listed a whole bunch of plans that we want them to review. That is our master plan, the greenways plan of the county, and 10 other ones that we have.
Up to even the most current as we're working through the duckwork restoration at Horseshoe Lake Park. So we tried to be really inclusive of anything that touched on parks or recreation or the city that they needed to be aware of.
So it's absolutely part of their the scope,
Yeah.
the background, and I mean this is typical, right? There are components of parks that are in that plan that are probably valuable, but need to be refined, integrated, or in some cases maybe removed.
Adjusted.
Adjusted, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was saying the big thing is we review all those past plans and pull out the information learned from it. Because the last thing we want to do is regurgitate.
Right.
So and that's where again, as somebody that likes to see stuff built, I don't like to keep planning to plan and keep kind of turning that wheel over and over. But if there's something we learn in there that says, all right, maybe we don't need to do a deep assessment of this because it's in there, then we just pull out the synopsis and take that information and move forward.
Very good.
And I was just going to build and say we even have a specific task in our approach that is strictly going and doing that homework. We've actually even started to do that homework even now, and as we were preparing for the interview. But in the scope, having a specific task to do all that homework, to review all those plans and make sure that we understand everything holistically.
Yeah, and luckily some of those plans, like the Greenways plan, is actually going through a county update right now. And we have current work with county planning and county public works. So we know all those folks really well. We know the actual people that are working on them. One happens to be a boyfriend of one of our employees. So we have like good connections with what all those other plans are kind of in the broader aspect. The other thing we are doing is we are doing, like you guys know about the county greenways plan. OHM is leading the area-wide greenways plan. So we're basically doing the same thing, and it's for NOACA, except we're doing it for Lake, Geauga, Medina, and Lorain counties. I had to think about it. So we're doing a trails plan for all of them, and that's a huge endeavor right now. The team working on that is not listed here because they're pretty swamped for the next 5 months, I would say at least.
Thank you.
You're done?
Yeah, question, sorry.
Okay.
Do you want us to keep talking?
No, I didn't know if you were through with the presentation or not. Okay. All right.
Is this now the time?
Yes, go ahead.
Some of these may also be directed at staff. So the proposal speaks of 10 parks. Do we have a quick list of what those 10 parks are?
We do. Yeah, so in the scope, in the RFP, we listed, give me a second here.
Yeah, and I think we identified even, the beautiful new Cardinal, like that's technically part of the library, but that's a park in theory. And
Right next to it.
yeah, so I mean, that probably still needs to be considered. Maybe we're not looking at specific recommendations for it, but when we're looking at, neighborhood service, like how are residents being served by our parks, that's gonna play into the equation.
So here's our 10 official parks: Barbara Boyd, Kane Park, the Community Center area, Cumberland Park, Denison, Forest Hill, Kenilworth Park, the Shaker Lakes area, Superior Schoolhouse, and then Turtle Park.
And Kenilworth Park being, what is that, the green space that's in Euclid Heights Boulevard?
Yeah, it's Kenilworth and Euclid Heights essentially.
Okay. And when we speak of open spaces, are they looking at any of the vacant spaces that aren't considered to be parks?
So that's part of it, right? We have these potential opportunities for spaces to become parks or conservation areas.
So, and I think all of the members, we received a specific request that Turkey Ridge be looked at.
Yeah, so that would be an example.
Which we also have identified as a potential development opportunity.
Right.
And I've always been curious about this Kenilworth Park, why that has never been identified as a potential development opportunity. Will this analysis include looking at those properties and making some determination as to whether a best alternative use would be for development versus park?
So one of the things that Pros Consulting is gonna bring to the table for us is part of that assessment right there. So I think we had talked about this a little bit in the interview process, and even us internally in the proposal process, is they'll be able to analyze, do we have the right number of acreage, parks, open space, park space for the number of residents that you have in the community? That's question one. Then question two is how it's distributed within the community, because you could have, a number of acres on one side of the community versus another, and the ability for one side of the community get to it, vice versa, right? So the quick answer is yes. Part of that assessment will be understanding what are the available open spaces as we identify with staff, analyzing them as it pertains to potential open space, but then also taking into account other development opportunities that may be available to that space. So very early on in the process, we'll start to gather that data, perform that analysis, and then as we start to go out to the community, start assessing and asking that question of not only of the staff but of the community about the highest and best use for some of those spaces.
Yeah, and the one thing we always talk about is that assessment, all that information, that's just a tool to inform everybody.
Right.
So we still have to talk to the community. The administration is gonna have goals, like you guys are gonna have goals. So we wanna make sure that those are all aligning. So if there is an opportunity for economic development, which I think is kind of what you're alluding to, we want to start structuring that conversation with the public sooner than later, because the last thing you want to hear is, oh my God, we're going to take a park space and turn it into economic development. That tends to be a bit of a political I don't wanna say suicide, but challenge.
Right.
But from an economic side of things, maybe this makes more space as future development. And, I think your recent, citywide plan is gonna help inform that as well.
Right, and I'm not suggesting that any of this green space, I'm not taking a position on it either way, but
Right.
I've often heard that we have more than enough adequate park space in the city, so it's okay to proceed with development. I don't know that we've ever done a study on that. So when we did the Cedar Lee Meadowbrook development, there was a small green space there, and it was argued that that should be preserved as green space. And the counter argument to that was, well, we have plenty of parks nearby. So you guys will provide some analysis and some numbers that we can actually then rely on to
Yep.
say,
Correct.
okay.
And it's gonna relate to density, so I mean, if one area of your community is very, very dense and you just have one tiny park, there is metrics that point to, all right, per resident, we should have this amount of parks and this amount of amenities. These are just kind of metrics we can follow. So definitely have that information before we're making informed decisions.
Where does the Roanoke and Noble space fit in? Because I know it's a beautiful area that some of the neighbors has been really working it and trying to make it beautified. But if this is part of beautification of the park, that they probably could use some help. So I don't know where that fit in.
And does this go down to the pocket park
Yeah.
level?
I don't know what is considered. I'm not sure what that
Yeah,
space
well, that's-
is.
yeah.
Thank you. So we do have many spaces like that throughout our city, as you know, and that would be part of what we've identified as open space. So and
Okay.
perhaps it needs to be more formalized, or perhaps it, again, it's part of that analysis and how do all these different pieces fit together and create a unified park system.
But for example, in that case, if that's a community created park, the city hasn't really provided any resources to it.
Mhm.
And so part of their analysis may be, well, if you really want to make this into a city park, you've got to do X, Y, and Z.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, I just didn't want the opportunity, because they have worked so hard there to, if it's able to help them make
Right.
it even more beautiful,
Right.
then they would need the resources and the funding or whatever it may need to make that a park or not.
Or maybe
But-
we take it over officially as a city
Yes,
park.
so that they, but I don't wanna take away what the neighborhood is doing, but I just wanna be able to say, if you're gonna beautify spaces, include the areas that residents are actually using their own money and their own resources and their own hard work to make those beautiful, to assist in that as well.
Yeah, and you guys are bringing up just really good points here, because we have an idea of what the planning process is gonna be, and we have these steps. We've done this long enough to know that there's going to be changes. Like it's going to be sinuous. We're going to learn something at some point, just like that says, hey, maybe we should look at this space, and nobody thought about it. And our approach to that is that's very, very okay. Like the whole goal of this is to do a plan. Like how we get to the end of the plan is probably going to change from what we originally envisioned, just because we're going to learn something along the way, and we're not scared of that. I think some consulting firms get a little scared. They say, stop, that's a change order, or we need to like a proposal request. Like we don't really do that. We just pivot and go. And that's just kind of what Arthur and I's mantra has been the whole time is, basically following through with the plan. That's kind of what we care about the most.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
How do you envision this affecting the dog park initiative that you have?
I was getting ready to you right ahead of me. So, the community has been eagerly asking for a dog park for many years. We don't have one. And, I think we have more dog owners than we have,
Non-dog owners.
Children?
not children. It's less children and more dog owners. And, we had a public hearing, and we had some wonderful information brought to us by the veterinarians here in Cleveland Heights,
Oh,
where
okay.
it is actually a benefit to have a dog park within your city, because, which I didn't know, that homeowners who are purchasing homes within different cities are looking for a walkable or close place for a dog park.
Yep.
I've had 2 residents to ask about putting it into the master plan, this plan. And I've been hesitant because for this couple of reasons, as Tony mentioned, we've have a lot of master plans and they sit on shelves. And I don't want a dog park to sit on a shelf for 5 years and the community is waiting for a dog park. So I did talk to Eric, Director Zamp, and he says, no, we're trying to move this forward. So I just wanna know, how would that be able to fit within this plan so it's not sitting on a shelf and we can kind of move it forward? Because I just want it to happen.
Sure.
Along with the residents, and I don't know what the time frame or time space would be, but I'm definitely like you all. I do not want a master plan that's gonna be sitting on a shelf and nothing ever comes to a dog park or anything else that we envision in the city to make life better for our community.
Sure. So the response to that is, as part of this plan, we do what's called an implementation plan. So we get to the end, we know what all the recommendations are, and then we develop this implementation plan. And we also are going to identify funding opportunities for all those implementation plans. As part of that implementation plan, we prioritize everything. And there's a lot of information that goes into that. We can go out to the public and get kind of what's their priority. We can talk to the administration. We can talk to our committees to figure out, what needs to be first, second, and third, or what's, if we're grouping them together, what's a high priority, moderate, and then more of a long term.
Okay.
To us, that is like one of the most successful ways to set you guys up for implementation, because I've talked to so many parks directors and everybody, they're like, just give me a list that I can just here's what I focus on. Check, on to the next one, and you can kind of just go down through your list. Now, personally, I get to design the dog parks.
Nice.
So remember, when you're talking to folks, I get to design all these. So and my dog goes through training and I know a lot about it. So we can definitely, if that's something that is a desire for the community, because we're gonna see all that in our public engagement if it's kind of coming out. And all that's gonna do is confirm everything. I mean, if you're hearing it, it's probably just gonna confirm it.
We've had 2 public hearings on it.
Then it's gonna definitely come out. So, I mean, of lately in park master plans, we've been hearing dog parks, restrooms need to be everywhere is kind of a common one, and then pickleball. So, so get ready for the pickleballers.
Oh, yeah.
So much pickleball.
Yes.
And it would be good for you to meet with the Park and Recs Advisory Committee.
Oh yeah, I think that's on the list.
And sit with them, because the dog park actually came out of that.
Okay.
The pickleball actually came out of that. I was the chair of that last year. So I know a lot of things that the community are asking for regarding the parks and paths and all of those different type of things. So you'll get a lot of information meeting and talking with them as well.
So as Jeremy talked about, the experience of going through these parks master plans as part of our scope, we put in a specific task meeting with as we kind of collectively called it, special interest groups. So talking either with committees or with associations or all the pickleball fans that we did in the one project. But we know that beyond kind of meeting with the steering committee, meeting with the general public and engaging with them, that there are these smaller pocket groups, organizations, associations that it's worthwhile for us to make sure that we're talking with them, understanding their needs, understanding what they're looking for, and then in that way that we can layer that into how that meets the overall needs of the community, right? Not trying to separate them out from the rest of the community, single them out, or raise them on a pedestal or anything like that. But we just know with some of those organizations in the past, it was pickleball. We had met with a disc golf group. Sometimes there's this down in Wadsworth, it was with the athletics group. It was the baseball.
The baseball.
They had a big baseball organization down there, and down there, I think a lot of their ball fields weren't in the right spot. Number one, they kind of needed to be more collective, so that way they could group resources together. And so again, we recognized we worked with the steering committee there, and we worked with the administration there to identify who are those special interest groups that we need to talk to a little bit more, because there's just some nuances there. Right? It needs to go a little bit beyond just our normal engagement piece. We just kind of dig a little bit deeper, because there's some specialization there that they're looking for, whether it's a court or type of material or a location, and making sure that these things are located appropriately. I think the end of the day.
I definitely wanna know about the dog park, cause I'm in the process of doing legislation for that. And so the law director and I are working on the different steps as far as moving that forward. But I wanna make sure that I'm not overstepping what you all are doing. I wanna make sure it's right in there, but I want the community to be assured that this is something that's a high priority on the list for the plan so that they feel comfortable with it as well.
It seems like
Yeah.
it'll come out that way.
Yeah, I think if there's instances like that where you guys know, hey, here's a need, a demand and a need that we're hearing, then that's something that will definitely make sure that it's included in the plan. The question for you is, where does it go? How big is it? How do we get there? You know, how does everybody kind of interact with that? Because traditionally dog parks, and this is kind of a little, you're probably gonna be like, huh, when I say this. Most dog parks, people wanna drive to them. They don't wanna walk to them. Because they're going there to get their dog exercise. So I don't wanna go on a 5-mile walk. I'd rather just go to a dog park and let them run around. So that's where I always tell people, like, if you're gonna do a dog park, you have to think about parking because everybody's gonna wanna get to it.
Correct.
They're not just gonna wanna walk to it. So I have a very high energy dog that is reactive, so he can't go to dog parks. So for him, like,
Was he banned?
no, he wasn't banned. He's just
Mom and dad is mom and dad.
mom and dad man. He's just a shepherd, and we call him an asshole because he's an Australian shepherd. And so for him, like, if we do a 3-mile walk, which is about an hour, do a 5K, that's nothing for him. So my wife during the summer will take him on 5-8-mile runs, and he still has energy. And but we do hikes and kind of, so like I know a lot about dogs. Yeah, so I mean, and that's kind of why we don't go to a dog park, is because I take an hour and a half out of my day, but a lot of people don't have that time, so they go to a dog park and let them run around for half an hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, like, if you take me on a tangent, I will keep talking about whatever you guys want to talk about, especially stuff like.
Well, we looked at some areas.
Okay.
The director and I, we looked at some areas, but nothing has been confirmed.
Okay.
A lot of the talk was Cumberland, and you'll get a chance to look at it because it has a lot of space.
Yeah.
But nothing's confirmed, I don't want everybody to know, nothing's confirmed. It's just, we went to look at some various different spaces to see as far as noise and residents and parking and all of those different things. But I'm just letting you know, this is something they want with other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just wanna make sure, with going through the legislation, and I'll talk with Eric afterwards, what do I do regarding this piece as far as the dog
I
park?
was gonna say, one of the first things that we do with staff in kind of our kickoff meeting with them is kind of that data dump and that information dump of like what's been talked about, what are high priority topics, what are things going on in everybody's mind, so we can get all that information very early on, so that way as we start to go through the previous plans, we have that kind of frame of mind, thinking through. And then eventually, as we said, our team member pros on their way to do kind of some of the analysis piece, there might be something you tell us that, hey, Leon, Will, can you take a little look at this too, right? Because this is some interest.
Yeah.
And it's not the only time we can do that, because we've set in our scope times that after we go through the first round of engagement, like Jeremy was saying before, there's gonna be things that, maybe we didn't think about initially, right? Or even when we did our analysis, didn't stand out to us. But then we go out to the public, we speak with everyone, and something starts to kind of come to the top, or a couple of things come to the top. And then we allow ourselves some time to go and investigate that a little bit further, get more information on it, understand where it may fit in, and then kind of set course. And I think Jimmy mentioned it, but we always, when we come back to the public, it's always this is what we heard. This is what we heard, and so we're showing you what we heard, right? Again, using that lens of best practice, understanding the existing condition, understanding what we heard from you, and it's kind of continue to go through that process every step of the way.
What do you think the timeline will be from start to finish as far as putting together a
12
master plan?
months.
I think we had 12 months.
Yeah.
12 months.
Yeah.
Vice President, can I ask a question?
Yes.
That's gonna, I think
Yeah.
maybe where you're going, because I know, I remember you guys mentioning this in the interview, talking about, maybe early action items or things that are popping up that don't necessarily have to wait for the plan to be completed.
Yes. Yes, no, though there is, because we know that there's grant funding cycles that'll come up at certain points next year. So I think where we're at in the process, making sure that allows flexibility for potentially submitting on those grant opportunities. Once we know, we're talking 12 months from kind of the kickoff meeting to when we present. Here is that final plan. But there's going to be iterations in the middle there where we may know something. We may be set on a course for a piece of the plan, so we could act on, as you're saying, Director, we could act on something sooner rather than later, or start to think through other funding or setting aside whatever the case may be. We try to create that flexibility in the overall timeframe.
And then, sorry, just a quick follow-up. Talk a little bit about how in the revised scope and cost, you've sort of built in this extra piece of like special topic areas that we don't know today, but may pop up during the process.
Yes, so we added a few other pieces. One is one of the things we like to do is just adding, kind of a standard additional kind of meeting or public engagement, because sometimes, we'll learn something. It's like, what? We really need to go back out to the public or confirm this. So we like to have that flexibility. The other piece that we added in there, I think, speaks to a question that was raised earlier about maybe analyzing some of the highest and best use with some of the land that's available. So just making sure that as we're going through that assessment and we're looking into, we add more park space, or should this park space actually be more of an economic development tool and the park space should be over here, adding that analysis piece to it. Looking at some of the building components as well. I know that was discussed during our interview process about assessing that too. So we wanted to add some of those other kind of flex pieces as part of this. So as we go through this process, understanding what we're hearing and the course we want to take, that we have kind of roadways to take action on those.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I get this relationship, the planning relationship. Explain to me this relationship, the Gonzalez Parks and Rec Director relationship and you guys.
Well, Arthur's known him for like 15 years.
There's a relationship.
We actually umpired together back in, you're retired too now, so back in our umpiring days, we used to umpire together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We came in the interview process, and we're like, you look familiar.
Yes.
I'm sorry, by relationship. You're going to be mad.
He didn't clarify, did he?
That's interesting, but that's
So most of the time when we're doing these area-wide Parks and Rec master plan, depending on how the administration is set up, we're normally working with the Parks Director, primarily. But here I think he's at the table, and I know you're new to this role, but that's kind of where most of the clients I get to work with are park directors. So pretty much, we work with all of them, not just in the communities, but in the metro parks. And the pivotal role that we have with them is, how are we going to maintain all this stuff? Because that is the one question that everybody's going to be thinking about, these grand ideas. And then I can sometimes be the Debbie Downer and be like, hey, that's a grand idea, but that's going to cost $2 million a year to maintain it. And then I'm going to look at you guys and be like, is that realistic? And then
or this staffing level that you currently have.
Correct.
yes, or you're going to need 12 more staff just to mow this and stuff, or maintain it. So those are the things that will flush out. And the nice thing about that is we're going to have kind of the data that shows all that. So if the public does come up and say, well, why aren't we doing a water park? And it's going to say, well, it's $10 million of maintenance and annual costs. That's not in our yearly budget. So, and then most community members, when they start to see the dollars and cents, how those, don't make sense. Because of recently, the past park master plans we've been doing, a lot of folks have been wanting like a full-blown community center with a pool and a splash pad and all this stuff. I'm like, that's great, but you're going to need like 30 more staff members. Think about how much that's going to cost. And then you have maintenance on top of that. And then they're like, okay, maybe we don't need that. I'm like, the last thing we want to do is go out for a levy just to raise funds for all of that stuff, unless it's something that's really demanded by the public. But all of that information goes into the decision-making process with that.
And one of the other things that we have with pros too, when PROS is making their evaluations and assessment, that aspect, I mean, we have that aspect, as Jeremy mentioned, understanding kind of the maintenance costs, what the staff implications are gonna be, but PROS is also gonna take a look at that for us too, kind of looking at kind of the existing staffing, so that way as we start making these recommendations, all of us can easily start to flag, as Jeremy mentioned, okay, like you need, 10 more people now, right? If we do this, we're all in favor, then we need 10 new staff members. And again, they're gonna be looking at the metrics from a regional standpoint and a national standpoint of kind of what it takes in order to make that happen, both from a staffing standpoint, but from an operational dollars and cents.
So can I follow up on this? So here's what I'm thinking, 12 months is what I heard. And what I'm thinking of is next year, when you're putting together the 2026 budget for your department, if you don't know what you need to know in the right period of time, then we're not budgeting, we're looking at budgeting for 2027. This is a question, I'm stating it, but you see where I'm going with this? And I'm not worried about anything right in this moment. I'm just trying to understand on the timing aspect, how this is gonna work from a budgeting standpoint if you get the information, let's just say a year from now, and we haven't budgeted for whatever the plan is.
Well, similar to that, I mean, prior to even any type of plan being established or a master plan coming into effect, I mean, we already know some of our needs for what we have already established. So, I mean, I would have, after a full year of being here and whatnot, I would assume that I would have no problem creating a budget based on what we already have established.
Sure.
And then moving forward, we can start to incorporate a lot of the things that are on the master plan and how are we going to tackle those things. But I guess, because it's going to take them, 12 months, which will push us into 2026 to even take a look at what we need to get started with. So I would assume that I would have a solid footing on just not even taking their master plan out of the equation. What we have is existing and how we can budget for those things.
When is budgets? Like, when do you start? I mean, I know
They ongoing?
it's always ongoing. I realize that.
It's going.
When is it that, okay, I need to have a final draft, the final one? Like, what's?
Well, December 31st, we have to have a budget.
Okay.
And, but the budgeting process starts in June in a sense. And then council usually votes, believe it or not, in December. And we actually haven't done that yet for this month, but it's November, December are the kind of key months for when it's ripe and ready for council. But there's a lot that goes before that.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes on.
But if I could just add, using our CSAP as an example, so we were going through the CSAP process, we haven't adopted a plan yet, but we knew that there were gonna be these grant opportunities coming up. So we built that into our budget as a maybe. And then subsequent to submitting that to council, we got the word from the feds that we got it. So I think even though you're gonna be, you'll know what you know, we're gonna have information
Yeah, we'll have, I mean,
that you can start to plug into your budget.
the full plan is gonna take 12 months, but we're gonna have well in advance, we're gonna start to know some things that are gonna take some precedent prior to the 12 months and whatnot as well.
Yeah, and I think what's gonna help him out the best is, I talked about that implementation plan where we're identifying all the recommendations, how much they're gonna cost, what are the funding sources. We can make sure we also include what is the operations and maintenance with it too, because implementing is one thing, but then operating and maintaining is something else, and that's what really has to go into his budget.
So you'll do everything with plan and development. Once you finish the plan, then you will have a recommendation, first, second, third, with the cost and maintenance, and then it goes to
Well, he's involved in the whole
Parks and Rec.
process.
Yeah, but I understand. No, I understand. I know he has some kind of thing, but I'm trying to figure out departments. It stays in this
Oh, I gotcha.
department, and then
Yeah.
it kind of move once
It's probably,
it's kind of completed.
I would say that it's not siloed like that. Like
Yeah.
we're essentially working as a team.
As a team, got it.
Karen is been focusing on parks planning, so it makes sense that we're involved, but ultimately a lot
Right.
of it's gonna be, so,
Okay, that's
yeah, I think it's a
fine.
collaborative.
Cause
Okay.
there's a lot of things, you know, that, you know,
Loud.
planning, this community is very lucky to have an independent planning department.
Mhm.
A lot of other communities don't have that. They have just a combination of people just thrown together to
Right.
make it happen, right? So we're very, very blessed and lucky to have an independent planning department to be able to do this. But there's a lot of things that
Overlap.
that Karen doesn't know about my department that's
Right.
gonna be very crucial in this
Correct.
planning process, and that's why we're gonna be working hand in hand
You
and side
should,
by
you
side.
should work collaboratively.
Yeah, and
as a-
we
as a
definitely
group.
will
Yeah.
be. It's gonna be a total team effort to make this happen, not just put in planning's department, not just put in Parks and Rec
Yeah.
department. It's gonna be a total
That's-
team effort.
That's good to know.
Promise.
That's good to know. But I'm going back to the dog park because of a year. And I've been talking to, and maybe this is for you as well, I've been talking to Director Hannah too, because we have leftover ARPA money. And could ARPA money also be used for dog park? And so I need to talk to him regarding that. I know,
It's,
I
you know, the
know,
encumbrance is what I'm thinking
I
about,
understand, yes, I got
in
you.
the deadline.
Yes, so, no, I'm talking about something like, yes, gotcha.
Yeah.
So it was a conversation that was tossed around, but nothing, no outcome, no plan, no nothing like that. So I'm just trying to figure out what's the timeline would be for something like a dog park. Just so residents have an ideal to say, okay, this may not even happen until 2027. Or it may not happen at all, I don't know.
So I think by summer, we'll definitely have our assessment done and we'll know like what is the needs of everything. And if that's high on the needs, then the next question is like, we're gonna identify all these needs that everybody wants. Next, where does it go, right? So then that's where we're gonna have to either throw a bunch of options out based on our recommendations and then see what the public thinks. And I think we can get that information back probably soon after the summer to at least start to shake that down because from a funding for that one, you know, NatureWorks is pretty easy for that. There's a few other ODNR ones relating to parks that you
Depending on
can
the
get.
situation,
Yeah,
too.
depending on the situation. We do a lot of grant writing for our clients. So
Oh, nice.
we helped submit like for NatureWorks last year 4 and went 0 for 4. Well, we technically went 1. No, well, we helped Solon submit a year before, they didn't get it, and they literally just resubmitted again,
Yes.
and they got full funding allocations this year.
Okay.
So the beauty of that, because we write grants for municipalities, for those of you that don't know, and we didn't give like the whole OHM spiel for everybody, in Northeast Ohio, we represent, I think, 13 communities as their community engineer. So we have, you know, basically a group of staff that they're the community engineer. They're in there pretty much on a daily basis. They're at council meetings on a weekly basis. The nice thing about that is those are the communities that don't have planning departments. So we've kind of brought that to the table and somehow act as their pseudo planning department. But it gives us a good understanding of how, you know, what are the operations of a city? And that's kind of nice to have coming to the table. So we know how to build these plans within your operations and that also are gonna allow you to go after grants. 'Cause grant writing's a little bit of an art, I've learned. Yeah, a little bit.
And I just wanna make it clear, I'm not putting anyone on the spot, but I'm getting a lot of emails. So
But
I
she
wanna
is.
make sure that people are very clear about, people are watching, I want to make sure people are very clear about their dog park and we are talking about it. And when it will happen, when it will not happen, those type of things. So I just want to make sure people understand it's out there, it's on the radar for a master plan or maybe something ahead of a master plan, but it's on the table.
So you want us to do some subliminal messaging conversations?
Yes, cause we do have a
Bring all our dogs.
I want to introduce you, we have Peggy Spates, who is a part of the Parks and Recs Advisory Committee.
Oh, okay, good.
And so she's here and she knows what the community have been asking for some
Excellent.
time, and pickleball is one and some other
Yeah.
things, and she can tell you once you meet with their group.
Yeah,
But I just wanna make sure it's out there,
okay.
okay?
If I could, because we've been doing a lot of discussion around active park and recreation things. Included also is our more passive, so how do we maintain our natural areas and
Yes.
our natural resources and our streams and our trees
Mhm.
and those quiet spots. So that's all part of the balance that has to get
Mhm.
looked at.
Yes.
So I just wanted, because we hadn't spoken about any of the environmental importance of our parklands, I just wanted to be sure that you and the public are aware that that's part of this overall look at parklands. Not just whether it be active, but what's that right balance and how should each park, be functioning.
And thank you for bringing that up, because that's one of Peggy's specialties.
Peggy and I are great friends and have worked closely on many things like this.
Would you like Peggy to speak for herself now?
She's not in the room.
I'll give me 1 minute,
Okay.
and I'll give you the floor for a second. Yes.
So, I have a question for you, Director Zanth. We're spending a considerable amount of ARPA money on parks. How does, that's kind of a done deal, if you will, on, the amount and what it's for. But is there any kind of modifications, or is there a role for them with this this allocation, but yet not implemented money?
I think the simple answer is yes, and not just that, we also have, this federal, it's really a state grant for Kane Park as well. So there's stuff that hasn't happened yet, which is, it's set in stone, we're gonna have to do them, but we can utilize the team to, refine, make sure the plan reflects it, and that we're not, if we're gonna improve the skate park at Kane Park, well, then they need to know that, so that we're not building a skate park at Denison or something like that, things like that. So yeah, I think we're gonna build the strip, right? And we're gonna get a design, but they can weigh in on when it's actually getting constructed and some of maybe the amenities related to it.
I see.
The one thing I will mention though is that a lot of those projects have been created and gone out to bid. So like there's not a lot of differential, like we can't deviate from the plans because this is what they're bidding on and this is the price that they've given us for those bids. So regarding there's some projects that we do have a lot more flexibility on than others, but some projects are, because we've already gone out to bid, we already know that these are the plans that are gonna be moving forward, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. What about our part of the Shaker Lakes project? I'm wondering how they might fit into that, because go ahead.
Well, as you know, that the Stonebrook Restoration at the Horseshoe Lake Park is being designed and planned. So there's a design team and we're working in collaboration with the sewer district and the city of Shaker Heights, and there's been a lot of public process about that.
Oh, yeah.
But we're gonna wanna understand now that we have those designs and how does that fit in with everything else we're doing within Cleveland Heights? So we know there'll be trails and an outdoor classroom, so maybe we don't need an outdoor classroom in another park. Maybe that's gonna serve that need, or maybe we will. But those will be values that they'll be able to take a look at, because we're gonna know what that park looks like, and then how should it connect to other parks, and how can we make sure that all of our residents have an easy way to get to similar amenities or get down to that park. So maybe how do we connect our parks better? Is there a better way to do that?
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar. There might be some aspects of that project in particular that is not getting covered by the sewer district project that we can supplement through ourselves.
And just for people who are watching, the plan will definitely cover the different geographical areas in Cleveland Heights to make sure one area of Cleveland Heights is not has the same or amount of amenities in those parks or small areas as they would have in a different part of the city.
That's the goal. There's certain circumstances where you guys know, like a lot of the biggest parks are kind of around your peripheral. And then we got, Kane kind of cutting through the middle. And then we just have these big, dense populated neighborhoods where we just can't put a giant reservation right in the middle of them. But we can ask those residents, what are the amenities that they're really looking for, and kind of lean into that. So that's by all means the goal. Sometimes it's not achievable for everybody just because we don't own the property, land's not there, other circumstances, but absolutely.
Okay, so yeah, because I know where the Barberport Park is in the Caledonia area, it's not a lot of parks in that area.
Right.
So they're gonna want a lot of amenities or different things to make that a park where people will go to in that community.
Yeah, and then the other thing to think about that is kind of how do we connect to our parks?
Correct.
So not only, so that's gonna be a big proponent of are we identifying corridors that start to create those enhanced connections?
Do we know or do we have any idea if East Cleveland is going to still move forward with the park outside of
Josh?
Caledonia?
So just mention your relationship with.
Yeah, so I serve as the consulting city engineer for the city of East Cleveland. I
Okay.
work very closely with the administration and the community. You know, I know that's always something in the air. I think the current administration would love to see that move forward. So I can't give an answer one way or the other
Okay.
right now. I don't think it's something that is, off the table,
Okay,
but definitely something that there's a lot of hurdles still to clear.
okay, yeah. Well, so because they did reveal a plan and at the school, so I just wanted to know how far that has gotten, because that would be an added park in that area, so.
Yeah. Let's just say this, so we did the original assessment of Forest Hill for the metro parks. That was 5 years ago?
Yeah.
I think.
Say no more.
So I mean, yeah, and so they were looking at it like way back then and trying to figure out, all right, what would it take? So I know that park very, very well now.
You have a design right now that's sitting on a shelf that
Yeah,
you're trying to
design's
push
good.
into implementation
Trying to
to
get
East
it off the
Cleveland,
shelf.
so,
Yeah.
Well, if no one else have any
One more
questions,
question,
okay, and I'm
and maybe
sorry.
this is
Then Peggy, I'll let you have a couple minutes.
And this may be a question that needs to get answered by law and or the finance department. So you've asked us to vote on this legislation to approve the contract at our next meeting.
Well, there's a caveat to that, which I think is in the memo. There needs to be the 2025 capital budget adoption, because there's an $80,000 supplement needed to accomplish this. So we don't expect that to be voted upon until that capital outlay is set.
Okay,
Okay, because right now it's uncertain whether we're gonna
Yes.
pass a capital budget before the end of the year.
Right.
Does that jeopardize any of the use of the ARPA money for this contract, or is this all outside of?
This is all capital, so we have a 2024 capital budget of
Oh.
125 set aside.
Right,
We need to supplement that. So it's all, no ARPA funding. So we don't have this December 31st deadline.
all right.
good
In that
question,
sense.
great.
And so the execution of this contract, can it get delayed if necessary until after the first of the year if we don't approve a capital budget?
Yes, it has to wait for that capital budget.
Okay.
So, but I'm glad you asked it so that these guys can hear it, that it's not us holding them up, it's this process that would be holding them.
Very good question, Mr. Kopp. Is there any other questions from our council members, staff? And Ms. Bates, if you mind moving to the table for a few minutes?
Thank you.
I normally don't, we normally don't do this in committee meeting, but you are here.
I'm special.
You're here and you're part of the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, and I know you're very passionate about our parks. So I wanna give you a few minutes to
Thank you,
speak.
appreciate it. I'm Peggy Spade, and I'm one of 9 members of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. I'm the only one who really doesn't speak sports.
Okay.
And so,
Gotcha.
I've been through 3 years of meetings where everybody's talking about soccer and swimming pools and pickleball and everything, and I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm really excited about this process, and I have huge faith in our planning department because I've known them and worked with them for a long time. I'm very excited about our new Parks and Recreation Director as well. So I'm really excited about this whole process and that we've finally come to the point where we are looking at our park system as a whole, because we, as you know, we have this bisecting Dugway Brook watershed that goes right through the center of our community of 8 square miles. And I think the only thing that I'm finding missing in this proposal, and maybe it's explicit or implicit, but I'm not seeing it, is language about the environment. I think that open space and green space doesn't mean healthy habitat. And I would like to just put out there, and I know this will come out in many community meetings with all of the special interests and us passionate people about preserving, enhancing, improving our green space so that it's less mowing, more growing, more habitat. So that was the only thing I really found wasn't explicit. And in your team, I do notice that you have a woman who's experienced in forestry management, et cetera, et cetera. And I hope she plays a very pivotal role so that we
She
can.
lives here.
Oh, she's in Cleveland.
Well, she's in Shaker, so she's pretty close.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, well, one of the things I just wanted to mention to you guys is like, I'm co-chair of the Friends of Lower Lake,
Okay.
as well as the initiator of the Heights Native Pollinator Pathway and president of Friends of Heights Parks. So we've been working at Lower Lake for going on 8 years, removing invasive species and planting native ones. So we would love to be able to, bring that to the Dugway Brook watershed as well. And so I just think that we need to look at everything through an environmental lens, like what is the best thing, not for pickleball players maybe, but for all of us who are trying to live in a healthier planet. So that's what I've got to say.
Thank you so very much.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Yes?
I just want to say, well, we didn't talk about that today because we were really focused more on the active recreation.
Mhm.
That was something that we did discuss during our interview and
Good.
in the proposal. So
Excellent.
it's very much on our radar.
Okay, well, I knew you'd be a good advocate for that. Thank you.
Okay,
You know,
yes.
but going off of what Peggy said here, how much is Director Boateng, I don't know who to ask this question to, maybe you, gonna be part of this
An integral part of
process?
it, he was part of some but not all the interviews. Like, I don't think he was at the OHM original interview, but the intention is obviously that's a real integral part of this is, resiliency and sustainability. And I'll just add that we do have RDL contracted with the city separately for landscape architecture services. And one of the things we're gonna have them do is take a look at our our preferred species list.
Mhm.
So it sort of goes to what Peggy's saying, and I think we can leverage their role and on this team to say, let's take a look at the species that are in our parks and in our other spaces and make sure that they are the ones that are appropriate, that we don't have all the same species in a row so that when they die or get sick, that the entire park dies and gets sick,
Right.
have some diversity, so things like that.
Well, and just building on that, our city isn't unique in the fact that our Parks and Recs department might have a lot of great expertise for recreation, but not for natural resources. We don't have anybody on staff, I don't believe, who really we don't have a natural resources department like the Metro Parks, for example. So that's a lack here that we're gonna have to build on to really bring that expertise and then the staff to be able to maintain a healthy habitat. It's a big job.
All right, any more questions, comments?
If I
Seeing-
could-
Yes, go ahead.
Councilman Cobb, brought this up and we spoke a little bit about it, but I do think it's worth exploring, and maybe you have to have a conversation with the law director. Could this committee, so there's gonna be a second reading on Monday night, which you can't vote upon, so there'll be a third reading whenever that is, but can the committee still maybe make a recommendation to show that we're behind it, we just have to wait for the funding to be in place?
Or I suppose an option also would be to do a budget adjustment for this. I'm not asking.
I think you better wait.
Well, I'm just saying I'm looking at you, but it's.
Well, I imagine we could. That's a question again for the finance department.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for a motion out of this committee that council proceed with approving the contract, I'm glad to make that motion that we do that. I don't think there's any hesitancy on the part of, I won't.
I don't see a problem with it either.
And I
I'm
would second
satisfied,
that.
I'm satisfied with that.
And
We
I,
just have to figure out what to
right.
pay.
and I would ask that, you know, maybe the finance department, the law department look to see if there is a way that this contract could get approved in two portions. So we're not significantly delaying work. It says, I do think some time is of the urgency, and it would be great if you guys were able to get done in less than 12 months
Thank
in
you.
advance of our next
Thank you.
budget hearing, so we would have a better idea of capital and maintenance needs. So maybe there's a way to you know, get the contract started now and then approve the second part. If for some reason we don't finish the budget this year.
We don't have a problem doing that, by the way. Like, we'll gladly break our contract up if that works best for you guys. We do that all the time, especially at this time of year. But, so think about that.
Yeah, I mean, then it would, the easy way would be to have a $125,000 contract A,
Yeah.
which we have the funding for, and then a contract B is the 80.
There you
Is
go.
the what?
Is the 80 that we need in the,
So he has the 100 already, but the 80 that is contingent on the budget, he can wait, they can wait for that. That's very good thought.
If you want us, we can revise that proposal to show that where we have like the base of 125 and all these additional tasks that could be authorized at a later date.
so if we got that prior to Monday, it'll be close, right? Because we're already on Thursday.
Yeah, we can turn that
Oh,
around.
I'm sure Director Hannah would love just one more thing to do.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean,
It's very
the
ambitious.
legislation is already there, it's
Yes.
just we didn't have the contract.
Yeah.
available.
I'm fine with it if my two committee members are.
I mean, with the understanding, you know, that we don't know how a vote's gonna go, but sure,
Yeah, right, at least
put
these.
it out there, yeah.
Yeah, but it's voted out of,
Yeah.
you all are
Yes.
okay in voting it out of committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And we'll-
two ayes here.
We can talk to Director Hannah about separating those contracts so we
Yeah.
can move forward.
Okay, and are you guys having a leadership meeting tomorrow?
Tuesday, we had one
Oh,
Tuesday, this past
So
Tuesday.
it's after Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But would you suggest that we do what? Like if we needed to have,
Just to go over this with the law director to make sure that,
Oh, you could probably email him or give him a call.
I
Yeah,
think
that's
I would.
that's no issue.
Okay.
I don't,
you
I'm
know,
speaking
but you're
out of
absolutely
turn.
right, it has to come from some, he can't just,
right.
yeah, we're aware of that process. That's gotta come from a council person
Right.
or a group of council persons.
Mhm.
So I'll do that today.
Okay. Sorry, I was speaking out of turn.
It's your,
Mr.
it's your-
President.
no, this is, no, this is your command.
He's good at delegating. All right, seeing no more questions or comments or concerns, I am now adjourning this meeting at 11:43 a.m.